Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and I am here to help you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before we begin, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you're from and what time you're watching. Now, get comfortable and listen closely, because what you are about to hear was never meant to be found. The 18th century in Europe was not an age of freedom, but an age of strict hierarchy, where monarchs ruled with inherited authority, the church dictated morality, and dissent was punished as heresy or treason. Knowledge was scarce and tightly controlled. Books were censored, philosophers were watched, and education was a privilege reserved for a select few. It was in this climate of intellectual oppression that Adam Weishaupt was born in 1748 in the city of Ingolstadt, a Bavarian stronghold of conservative Catholic authority. Orphaned at a young age, he was educated by the Jesuits, who instilled in him discipline, theological rigor, and absolute obedience. Yet in their strict structure he found not conformity, but a spark of critical thought. He devoured philosophy, law, and the works of classical thinkers, recognizing the mechanisms by which institutions controlled thought, manipulated morality, and maintained power through fear. By his 20s, Weishaupt had become a professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt. Yet he was frustrated with the system that rewarded conformity over merit, suppressed reason, and punished those who dared to question the status quo. In a world where open dissent could destroy a life, he sought a method to spread ideas without inviting persecution, a method that would rely on secrecy, discipline, and careful influence rather than force. In 1776, Weishaupt founded a secret society initially called the Order of the Perfectibilists, a small group of educated men devoted to the principles of the Enlightenment: reason over superstition, merit over inheritance, morality without fear, and the gradual improvement of society. This society, which would later adopt the name Illuminati, was not revolutionary in the modern sense. It carried no weapons, plotted no coups, and advocated no public uprising. Its purpose was intellectual, philosophical, and strategic: to cultivate enlightened individuals within positions of influence, to gradually spread the values of reason and ethical governance, and to challenge authoritarian control by thought rather than by force. The members operated under strict secrecy, with coded correspondence, ranks of initiation, and internal structures designed to protect the society from the ever-watchful eyes of Bavarian authorities. This attention to secrecy would later feed the legends that grew around them, giving the illusion of vast conspiratorial power far beyond what the historical records support. The Illuminati also understood the importance of embedding themselves within existing networks rather than building influence from scratch, and the organization targeted Freemasonry as a natural conduit. Freemasonry, with its widespread lodges, symbolism, and ritual, provided a ready-made structure of discreet communication and shared values, and by aligning with lodges, the Illuminati could quietly introduce Enlightenment ideals, recruit members, and expand their philosophical reach. Within a decade, the society had grown to several hundred members, including scholars, officials, and aristocrats, all bound by secrecy and shared principles. Yet, secrecy, while protective, attracted attention. Letters were intercepted, informants emerged, and philosophical discussions were twisted into evidence of subversive conspiracy. The Bavarian government, already suspicious of secret societies, grew increasingly concerned, viewing these hidden networks not merely as philosophical exercises, but as threats to established power. The edicts of 1784 and 1785 formally banned all secret societies not sanctioned by the state, explicitly naming the Illuminati. Raids followed, documents were seized, and Weishaupt was dismissed and forced into exile. The order itself was officially dismantled, existing for less than a decade, yet its name refused to die, preserved by the fear it inspired and the imagination it captured. Even in its brief existence, the Illuminati left behind structures and methods that were extraordinary for the time. Careful recruitment of the educated elite, strategic placement within influential networks, layered secrecy, symbolic initiation rituals, encoded communication designed to protect philosophical discourse from political suppression. These elements, while intended as tools of survival, would later be interpreted by observers as evidence of hidden omnipotence, fueling myths and legends that persist to this day. What truly terrified authorities and fascinated posterity was not the overt power of the Illuminati, but the subtle, invisible influence they sought to wield. The idea that a small, disciplined group of thinkers, operating quietly and strategically, could shape society and challenge authority without the use of force. It was this combination of secrecy, intellect, and philosophical ambition that made the Illuminati simultaneously a historical reality and a canvas for myth, a legacy that would outlive its founders and continue to haunt the collective imagination for centuries. Even after official suppression, the story of their formation, methods, and ideals offers a chilling glimpse into how ideas alone can threaten authority, survive persecution, and leave a mark far deeper than armies or decrees ever could. After the founding of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt's society began a careful, deliberate expansion, growing not through force or popular appeal, but through methodical recruitment of men already positioned within the intellectual, bureaucratic, and social elite of Bavaria and neighboring German states. Membership was selective, and candidates were evaluated for both intelligence and loyalty, ensuring that only those who could protect the society's secrecy and promote its philosophical ideals were admitted. The Illuminati relied on a hierarchy of ranks, each level providing access to more knowledge and responsibility, creating both motivation and discipline. And within these ranks, members studied ethics, philosophy, and the mechanisms of governance, preparing themselves to influence society subtly yet profoundly. Unlike many secret societies of the era, which were ceremonial or social in nature, the Illuminati emphasized practical, intellectual action, correspondence with influential figures, dissemination of pamphlets, and participation in Masonic lodges where members could quietly guide discussions and decisions. The society's internal correspondence, now preserved in historical archives, reveals a meticulous attention to strategy, secrecy, and ethical conduct, showing that Weishaupt and his inner circle viewed their mission not as rebellion, but as a careful reshaping of society's moral and intellectual foundations. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Illuminati's expansion was their integration with Freemasonry. At the time, Freemasonry was neither monolithic nor universally powerful, but it provided a well-established structure, ritualistic discipline, and an international network of lodges, with members drawn from the educated and socially influential classes. Weishaupt recognized that attempting to operate independently would leave the Illuminati vulnerable, so he strategically encouraged members to join existing lodges, subtly introducing new ideas and fostering Enlightenment thinking within a familiar and socially respected framework. This approach allowed the society to extend its reach beyond Bavaria without drawing immediate suspicion, while also preserving internal cohesion through shared symbols and coded communication. Historical records indicate that Illuminati members corresponded across lodges and cities, exchanged philosophical treatises, and cultivated networks in universities and courts, positioning themselves as thoughtful, discreet advisors rather than overt revolutionaries. The society's expansion was not without risk, however, and even minor breaches of secrecy were enough to attract the attention of authorities wary of clandestine influence. By the early 1780s, the Bavarian government had become increasingly concerned about secret societies operating within its borders, particularly those with networks that spanned multiple cities and involved educated elites. Letters intercepted during investigations reveal that officials feared the spread of Enlightenment ideas and the potential for these networks to challenge traditional authority, whether through moral persuasion or subtle influence in bureaucratic decision-making. In 1784, the government issued strict edicts banning all societies not formally authorized by the state, explicitly naming the Illuminati and warning that membership could result in prosecution, loss of office, or exile. Raids were conducted on private homes and lodges, documents were seized, and members were interrogated, providing the most detailed surviving record of the society's operations. These records, now preserved in Bavarian archives, show that the Illuminati's reach had indeed grown farther than many contemporaries realized, encompassing academics, civil servants, and minor nobility, yet the society remained fundamentally non-violent and philosophical in nature. What made the Illuminati appear dangerous to authorities was precisely the threat of ideas moving invisibly beneath established structures of power, a danger far more unsettling than any physical rebellion could have been. Even after suppression, the Illuminati left an enduring mark on the culture of secrecy and intellectual networks in Europe. Many members continued to operate within Freemasonry or other intellectual societies, carrying forward principles of rationalism, meritocracy, and strategic discretion. And the methods they pioneered, coded correspondence, selective recruitment, and symbolic hierarchy, became a template for later secret societies and political groups seeking to exert influence without exposure. The historical records also reveal subtle but chilling truths. The society's internal discipline, commitment to secrecy, and ideological rigor were such that members were bound not just by philosophy, but by the fear of discovery, creating an environment in which loyalty and silence were absolute, and failure to uphold these codes was seen as a moral and operational betrayal. The Illuminati's existence, brief and constrained as it was, demonstrates a form of power rarely acknowledged in traditional histories. The power of ideas, disciplined networks, and careful influence, which can persist even when the organization itself is destroyed. In this way, the Illuminati became both a historical reality and the foundation for centuries of speculation and myth, a society whose true reach was intellectual and strategic, but whose legend would grow far beyond its actual operations, inspiring intrigue, fear, and obsession long after its members were dispersed or silenced. Even after the Illuminati was officially suppressed, its name began to take on a life of its own, transforming from a historical society into a symbol of hidden power, clandestine influence, and forbidden knowledge. And this transformation began almost immediately as rumors and exaggerations spread across Europe. The confiscated documents, letters, and initiation texts intended to reveal internal philosophy were interpreted by the public and some officials as evidence of vast conspiracies, secret plots, and manipulation of governments. And though most of these interpretations were overstated or false, they cemented the society's reputation as a shadowy force. Contemporary pamphlets warned that the Illuminati sought to infiltrate every institution, from courts to universities, and these warnings often mixed fact and fear, exaggerating the society's reach. But archival evidence confirms that the organization did indeed operate with extreme discretion, cultivating secrecy, internal hierarchy, and symbolic communication designed to protect philosophical discussion from political repression. This combination of secrecy and selective influence gave rise to the enduring perception of the Illuminati as omnipotent, even though their historical actions were primarily intellectual, moral, and strategic rather than militaristic or violent. The Illuminati's methods themselves were subtle yet chilling, revealing a philosophy of power that relied on knowledge, loyalty, and the manipulation of networks rather than coercion or force. Members were trained to recognize opportunities to influence thought, introduce rationalist ideals, and cultivate alliances with those who could affect decisions from within positions of authority. And internal correspondence shows that they maintained strict codes of conduct to prevent leaks or betrayal, making the society both disciplined and psychologically intense. This focus on secrecy and ethical control produced an environment in which loyalty was absolute, silence was enforced, and members were expected to subordinate personal ambition to the greater intellectual goal. A system that historians note created both moral cohesion and a subtle form of psychological pressure. These operational methods, though benign in intent, are among the darkest secrets revealed in the records. The Illuminati did not wield armies or enact violence, yet they understood the terrifying power of influence and discretion, the ability to shape decisions invisibly, and the effectiveness of strategic patience, demonstrating that ideas themselves could be a form of power more enduring and far-reaching than brute force. As the centuries progressed, the legends of the Illuminati multiplied, fueled by political upheaval, revolutions, and the rise of other secret societies, and the society became a convenient scapegoat for those seeking to explain the mysterious, the rapid, or the frightening. From revolutionary France to clandestine European lodges, writers and thinkers attributed hidden manipulation, secret planning, and shadow governance to the Illuminati, even in cases where the society had long ceased to exist, creating a tangled web of myth and reality that persists to this day. Yet, historians who examine surviving letters, edicts, and membership lists emphasize that these claims of omnipotence are largely imaginative, built on partial knowledge and fear of the unseen, and the society's true legacy lies not in secret control, but in its disciplined philosophy, its subtle methods of intellectual influence, and its demonstration that small, committed networks could protect, preserve, and spread ideas without visibility or violence. The real dark secret, then, is that the fear of the Illuminati often says more about human imagination and anxiety regarding power than about the organization itself. And this fear, combined with actual evidence of disciplined secrecy, allowed the society's reputation to grow far beyond its historical scope. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of the Illuminati's mystique is how its historical truth and its legends feed into one another, creating a persistent cultural shadow that continues to inspire curiosity, fascination, and paranoia. While historians can trace the society's structure, membership, and philosophy with some certainty, the gaps in records, the secrecy of its internal communications, and the very human tendency to assume hidden hands behind every event gave rise to myths that are both compelling and terrifying. Modern perceptions of the Illuminati, from conspiracy theories to pop culture references, owe less to documented action and more to the principles and methods they practiced: strategic secrecy, ideological rigor, and the quiet cultivation of influence among the educated and powerful. These are the authentic, dark truths. The Illuminati demonstrated that influence could exist unseen, that knowledge could be wielded subtly as power, and that ideas, once planted in networks of loyalty and intellect, could persist far longer than any organization, creating a legacy that is simultaneously factual, philosophical, and mythic. The shadows of their brief existence linger, not because they ruled the world, but because they revealed the terrifying possibility that ideas themselves are capable of shaping human history in ways both invisible and enduring. The Illuminati's story, though rooted in 18th century Bavaria, did not end with its official suppression. Instead, it evolved into a legacy of ideas, secrecy, and the haunting notion of unseen influence, a legacy that persists to this day. Even as Weishaupt's society dissolved, its methods, careful recruitment, symbolic communication, hierarchical secrecy, and subtle intellectual influence, were preserved in subsequent societies, from Masonic lodges to political and philosophical networks, demonstrating that the principles of disciplined discretion and strategic thought can survive long after the organization itself has vanished. This legacy reveals a fundamental truth about power. It is not always visible, and it need not be violent to be effective. The ability to shape opinions, guide decisions, and cultivate loyalty through knowledge rather than force is a form of influence that history often underestimates, and the Illuminati, in their brief existence, perfected this art, leaving behind a blueprint for unseen power that continues to fascinate scholars, writers, and conspiratorial thinkers alike. In the centuries following its suppression, the Illuminati became entwined with myths and cultural imagination, inspiring speculation about global conspiracies, secret rulers, and hidden control over political and financial systems. Popular culture and literature amplified these legends, transforming the historical society into a symbol of omnipotence. Yet historians emphasize that most claims of modern global influence are unfounded, arising from fear, imagination, and the human tendency to find patterns in the unseen. What persists as authentic is not the notion of a world dominated by the Illuminati, but the evidence of their disciplined methods, strategic thinking, and philosophical rigor, which demonstrated that influence could be exercised quietly, ethically, and effectively. The dark reality revealed in historical records is chilling in its subtlety. The society did not command armies, but it mastered the control of information, loyalty, and access to power. And this understanding of influence continues to inform secret societies, intellectual networks, and even modern strategic organizations that operate beneath public awareness. The enduring fascination with the Illuminati also stems from the psychological and cultural space it occupies, as a mirror reflecting society's anxieties about power, knowledge, and secrecy. Across Europe and later globally, the fear of invisible influence became a lens through which events, revolutions, and technological or political changes were interpreted, often exaggerating the reach or intention of hidden actors. The Illuminati's actual practices, careful indoctrination, loyalty enforced through secrecy, intellectual debate within hierarchical structures, provided enough historical truth to make these myths plausible, creating a perfect storm where fact and legend reinforced each other. This interplay of authentic methods and exaggerated perception illustrates one of history's darkest lessons, that human imagination, when combined with real but misunderstood strategies of influence, can give rise to enduring cultural legends capable of shaping fear, curiosity, and even policy for centuries. The society itself may have been small, discreet, and philosophical, but its resonance through time has become monumental, proving that secrecy coupled with intelligence can leave a mark far deeper than brute force ever could. Ultimately, the Illuminati's legacy is not one of domination, but of enduring influence and the profound human fascination with hidden power. It demonstrates that small, disciplined networks can shape ideas, societies, and perceptions without public visibility, and that the fear inspired by secrecy can be as powerful as any overt act of control. Modern references to the Illuminati, from conspiracy theories to cinematic depictions, continue to draw from both historical fact and imaginative projection. Yet, at their core lies an authentic lesson about the potency of ideas, the persistence of disciplined intellectual networks, and the psychological weight of secrecy. The Order's brief existence, its methodical strategies, and the legends it inspired offer a cautionary tale and a source of intrigue alike. That power is not always visible, influence can be subtle yet profound, and secrets, once planted, have the ability to survive centuries, shaping human perception and inspiring both fear and curiosity in every generation that dares to ask who truly moves behind the scenes of history. In this tension between historical truth and enduring myth lies the final, haunting lesson of the Illuminati. The most dangerous forces are not armies or decrees, but ideas operating quietly, patiently, and invisibly, leaving shadows that stretch across centuries and continue to captivate our imagination.